get into it?
I am ready. I am going to pull our notes up. My body's pure. My soul is pure.
Now it's there. I've switched it over now, so now people can see us
Hello,
and hear us.
hello, everyone
Oh,
that
I
can
didn't
both
see you
see and
there.
hear us.
I
We
was just
didn't
talking
see
about
the.
football.
I don't know that this stream is ever going to be like super popular, but regardless, I'm going to treat it all the time as though there is one person watching. So to the one person watching, we appreciate your presence, and
Mm-hmm.
we value you as a human. And this is just we made this just for you and no one else. And so
No.
you should feel like we are cradling you personally in our arms. So, and
If
I am
anybody else
I'm a
shows
very
up, tell
good
them to
hugger.
leave.
You
That's
know,
true.
it's very interesting that this is like the motion for cradling a baby because
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like if you tried to hold one of those little like mammalian meatworms in this position that they would just wriggle out. I feel like every baby I've ever picked up is like a little bit would rather die than have me hold them, even the ones that like me, you know?
Hmm.
This is not a secure position for baby holding. I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty
Come here,
sure
baby.
like
Come
come
here,
here,
baby.
baby.
Let me
All
fix
right.
baby. Let me hold baby. Cradle baby.
Oh, fix the baby. Everyone here should watch Monster Factory, which is God's greatest gift to humanity, I think. Anyway, so
we still
this
need to sync
is
up and then do an intro real quick. So let's do that real quick before we get too into this.
this is a Chapel Bell Curve stream that you're watching right now, and we are
Mm-hmm.
about to preview the USC versus UGA game.
Hell
And
yeah.
let's do a sync.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. That's how they do it in the biz.
In the biz, that's what they do. They
Mm-hmm.
clap their hands demonstrably. We all know how serious you are about your clapping.
That's correct. It's
Um,
very important.
I am here from the land of bad lighting and bare walls. I'm gonna fix one of those two problems in the next couple of weeks. Probably the lighting one.
You have so many ring
Um,
lights too, so it's really a shame.
I have a lot of ring lights, but I have this one very glare-inducing window that, as you can see, really screws up the sampling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I might need to go like, oh, okay, that's better. Just have myself a little
Yeah,
off
there you
center.
go. Do you have any? Are
All
any of your
right,
ring lights in there right now?
they are all on,
Really?
full blast.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm getting it. I got one over here, and then I got
A little
one
behind the scenes.
up here,
Wow. Okay.
and I can get closer. I mean, we can be more ringlet.
Not a damn
Yeah,
shadow in that place.
yeah. Vampires are not welcome here. These are all UV sunlight ring lights.
I wonder if they'd be into that. I wonder if it's the UV rays that really mess with vampires, or is it something else? Is it?
I think it, I think it depends on your cosmology, right? Because like in the original Christian, in the pre-Christian vampiric myths, obviously like you wouldn't necessarily associate God with sunlight in the
Mm-hmm.
way that Judeo-Christian ethic often does. Although not explicitly, like the God as, divinity as light thing, like many of the symbolic and thematic elements of Christianity was actually developed in early Christianity and during the Renaissance, which is kind of ironic because many of the painters and artists that developed some of the sort of visual and musical motifs were themselves not very devout or interested in Christianity whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a really good example of that is the fact that we think of God as like a bearded white man, because when Renaissance era painters were painting Zeus, they painted him as a bearded white man, and when they were then asked to paint God, they didn't want to make it seem like that the Judeo-Christian God was more important than Zeus, the at the time pagan god that they had also been painting. And sort of the influence of neoclassicism on the way that Christianity talks about everything is, I think, very interesting. Anyway, this is a sports podcast. This is
We
a
did it.
college football podcast.
But welcome to his
Welcome.
English class.
That's
very
not
important.
even English class. I'm just a dork.
That's correct.
So,
All right. Would you?
are we ready for an intro?
We're ready. We're ready, my man.
And I will do the intro.
All right, do it.
Are you good?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready.
Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve. Let me try it again.
Okay.
Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve, a stats-focused podcast about UJ football. I'm Nathan,
And I'm Justin.
and today we are going to be breaking down UGA's, dare I say, demolishing, disapparition, molecularizing of the University of South Carolina on Saturday.
The term you
And-
used the most in the preview was atomize, and so I think this was an atomization.
Our atomization of USC.
Mhm.
So we will start our review episodes, as we always do, with our subjective experiences. Justin, why don't you tell us how your day went on Saturday?
It was a great day. You know, a few Saturdays ago, I claimed it was a perfect day. I think this was also a very perfect day. You know, inherently, you can't really have multiple perfect days if they're different that way. I mean, it kind of ruins the whole idea. But this was a perfect day. Started with a run. Been doing the ATH training. That's been a lot of fun. We did 9 miles on Saturday morning, and then drove out for my mother's birthday and my grandmother's birthday. And on the same day, found out that my brother is having a baby, and I'm very excited about that. He and
You're
his
gonna be an
partner.
uncle.
I'm going to be an uncle again, double uncle, all the way across the sky. It's very exciting. It's super, super duper exciting, and they are excited, and we are excited. And my mom is going to be a grandma, and she can't contain herself. But really great news. Then came back to Athens with enough time. We felt, you know, those night games, great time because we were able to go and kind of enjoy game day in some way. And so before the game started, we drove out and walked around campus and kind of got to take it all in as best we could, and got to stand on the bridge right outside Sanford and had some beer and played one of our favorite game day games called That's Not Close, wherein which That's Not Close is a game where you see people wearing bits of fabric or thing. It might not even be fabric sometimes, that is just not clothes. You know, it's not a judgment necessarily. It's just a statement. You know, that's not clothes. That's a bandana. That's not clothes. That's strings of fabric. That's not clothes. That is just leather. Somehow you found leather and affixed it to your body. But game day is a day where there are no rules, and that applies to clothes as well. And so it's always a good time to kind of just watch the passersby. And yeah, it's, you know, I've always talked about it. You know, when I used to work at the brewery, one of my favorite things was overhearing people say, that'd be a cute game day outfit, which means I would not wear this any other time for any other reason. But the fact that today football is being played, I'm able to wear this as an outfit. And that's always my favorite kind of excuse for that. But also a pretty lovely experience I had was sitting on the bridge, and I kind of looked over, and there was a guy that was like really close to me that was kind of kneeling on the ground. And I thought that maybe he was getting sick. But what he was actually doing was trying to sneak airplane bottles of booze into the stadium. And so he was trying to put them into his New Balance shoes that was not going to work. It was a very poor choice. And so I leaned over and I was like, "Hey, bud, hey, you're going to need to put those in your underwear." And he was like, "In my underwear?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've done it before. You're going to need to put it in your underwear." And he was like so taken aback. And then all at once, as if, and he had a few of these airplane bottles himself already, but you could tell just from talking to him. But it dawned on him all at once. He looked at me and his eyes got real big, and he said, "I wore compression underwear today." And I was like, "You knew this was coming then, my man." And so He shoved it in
He was.
his.
He didn't know he was ready, but he was ready.
He knew. Yeah, he didn't know, but he was ready. He was so ready to cross that bridge, quite literally, in fact. But he shoved it in the legs of his shorts, up into his little compression shorts, and it much like making friends in the bathroom. He was like, "Do I look good? Do you see anything?" Like, no, man, you got this. And then he walked in through the gate, and he saw us on the other side and gave us the big thumbs up and went and enjoyed himself. So I felt like a proud dad in that moment. It was a good time. How was your experience?
It was a good day. Similarly to the general fan experience, which first of all, I cannot imagine drinking on game day, which makes me, I guess, a little bit of a Puritan in that sense. But
Old teetotaler.
yeah, it's weird because that's definitely not who I am as a human. But I thought that the Redcoats had a really good day. It's been I think for marching band, college marching band in particular, writ large, there are a lot of marching bands really suffering right now under a lack of practice time and a lack of continuity. And I think that the Redcoats have done really well in the face of that, especially considering sort of the constraints that they've been working under. Practice was hot. The whole day was super humid, which I don't think
So humid.
if you were out in it was super. Like, I don't think if you weren't out in it for like 12 hours was very apparent, but it was very apparent to me. It was very humid, very sweaty, but that was all right. I thought, the Redcoats were playing this like Georgia soul music show right now, and they have a bunch of like sort of signature visual sets that they pulled off really well. And the thing is, anytime you're spelling anything on the field or anything, you're making a shape that's like recognizable and symbolic of something in the real world, it is a high risk, high reward maneuver.
Oh,
because
yeah.
if you nail it, it really is impressive. Like the Redcoats have been doing Script Georgia in their halftime show for the past couple of weeks, and like they've nailed it both times, which has been really good. But I thought they did really good. We added an entire new movement to the show, like a third song, and I thought that went really well. I saw Abby and Disney Dog. We took a picture together, and that was really sweet. I saw Jordan Davis at field level when I was walking around the hedges, and just Jesus Christ Almighty, that man is.
He's so big.
He's big in a way that is difficult for me to reckon as a person who is not often smaller than the people he's around, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I got my yearly Uga pick. I got a really fun picture with Uga. It was really funny. I waited until the Redcoats were on the field and playing, and then there was no one around Uga, and I just walked up and I was like, "Can I take a picture?" And as I knelt down, the stadium security lady next to Uga was like, "Please don't touch him." And I was like, "Well, first of all, this is a national treasure, so I would never do anything to hurt this dog." But we took a picture, and I got up and I looked at Charles Sealer, and I was like, I'm not only will I not touch this dog, I'm so worried about him getting hurt. Like I'm a little unsettled even being near him, And he thought that was very funny and did like a laugh, and I was like, all right, there we go.
I've made it.
Can dad jokes work on the highest stage? That was the big leagues, and my big league dad joke landed, and that's the most important thing. That was really like after that. At that point, we were already up, 20 points or whatever. And after that, I was like, all right, I gotta say it was a good day, like just Ice Cube style, like it was, or Ice Tea rather. No, that's Ice Cube.
That's Ice Cube, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was, I don't know. I mean, it was pretty much front to back a really good day. Oh, we had this. Okay, this was not a bad thing either, and nobody was hurt or anything, but it was just weird. So we were coming off the field, and the way the Redcoats have been sort of moving around, you can't really have interaction around the teams anymore because of COVID protocols. You can't be on the field at the same time as the teams. You have to wait for all the teams to leave, and then we can come on, which is different than it used to be. It used to be that the Redcoats would be, out on the field with 2 or 3 minutes left on the sidelines, just sort of hanging around. But we can't do that right now because of COVID. So when we leave, we go up under, I guess, the east stands and behind the away team locker room, and then back around to our seats. So we're going under there, and I hear on my radio, and it was a very Secret Service moment where like 3 or 4 of the staff members all pressed their hands to their radio headpieces all at once. So we hear over the radio, one of the staff members that was still up in our stand section over the halftime, just to make sure that everything was okay, was like, "Hey, we're having some kind of issue. There's like a confrontation with a fan going on right now. We need you guys over there." So we like book it up there, right? And I ran, sort of through a I think, restricted section in the stadium to get over there. So I get over there, and in this very, very empty section of stands, there's just this one guy standing there, right? And there's a stadium security person, and he's a dude maybe in his 40s, and he just has his hands in his pockets, and he's just like staring straight ahead, ignoring everyone. And so we go up to him, and it's like, hey, man, this is our section. It's been our section for, except for 2 years, it's been our section for like 40 years or whatever. And so we need you to leave. And the guy's like, no.
Okay.
He's not confrontational. He kind of just like sovereign citizened us, where he was like,
this is where I
your
am.
laws don't. Yeah, I am my own constitution or whatever.
No gods, no masters.
And so it turns out what had happened was that this guy had tried to go down the inner bowl of the stadium by the Redcoats and get down into the track by the hedges. And that area, they don't let you go down near the Redcoats anymore because we have a bunch of stuff up front, right? To the bottom next to the hedges or whatever. You can go down in the area next to the hedges, like other than just where the Redcoats are. So they wouldn't let him through. And his reaction was to stage what I would describe as like a passive civil disobedience, civil disobedience style direct action movement where he just stood in the Redcoat section. And we couldn't go up there, so there's like 450 Redcoats under the stands, just standing there, sweaty and hot, wearing masks in the humidity. And he's just standing there. So eventually we get a state trooper up there. And I don't even know if they arrested him. I don't even think they did arrest him. I think they just sort of like escorted him out of the stadium. And you could tell that the state trooper was kind of like, man,
come on.
I'm just trying to do my job.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
What's the big... Come on.
So, but the funniest moment was that they were like, make a hole. And so they escorted this guy out through the Redcoats. And it was very much like the band didn't really know what was going on. So they weren't like angry at the guy or anything. But it very much felt like the end of a courtroom drama, where they're like escorting out the guy who has gotten convicted. And there's like all the press or the paparazzi or whatever. It was just a really weird experience. Because like, if I'm like, oh, the Redcoats had a weird fan interaction, you expect it to be something where it's like, oh, this guy was super drunk and he like, swung at someone. But no, it was just a dude who was like
this middle-aged man
in the spirit of Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah. But it was like, he felt like he was making some sort of stand for liberty. You know what I'm saying? He was like, your jackbooted thugs don't scare me, as like 3 or 4 music majors and an English teacher were trying to convince him to leave a section of the college football stands.
He was just trying to figure out what he was trying to prove.
Moment. Yeah, I'm not really sure what was going on, but yeah, it was a great day. It was very humid, but other than that, it was great. I guess we can talk about what's going on in the field. Obviously,
that's why we're here.
If you're listening, if you're watching this, you probably already know this, but Georgia won 40-13. It was, I would say, maybe not. It was one of those games that was about as lopsided as it seemed. Yeah. But there were definitely moments where it wasn't as lopsided, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. Yeah. South Carolina definitely had like flashes of good. Like I would even say excellence at times. They had some moments that were like, oh, we should like sort of like I will watch your career with great interest over the next few years. Shane Beamer and
I definitely had. Yeah, I definitely had some. I had some of that feeling too. Mm-hmm. So just as a brief like stats update, if we can look at both this game in general and also where UGA is on the season. So UGA's end of game win expectancy was 100%, and if you look at their the win probability index, it started in the 90s.
Yeah, high 90s.
And I think the low point was like 97. So, like, in that sense, in the just pure statistical standpoint, it was really, really not competitive. Total EPA-wise, which is just your expected points added. Offensively, UGA had 14.34 EPA, which is pretty good. 13.15 EPA. Offensively, special teams EPA 1.18. Penalty EPA 0.44. So, on the other hand, South Carolina had negative 12 offensive EPA.
Jeez.
UGA's defense continues to do work. Defensively, UGA had a 71% stop rate, which just refers to just how often, basically how often UGA got the stop that it needed. 5 havoc plays created, three in the pass game, 2 rushing, 2 tackles for loss from UGA, 2 sacks, 2 passes defensed, 1 pick, and a fumble forced. Special teams wise, UGA had they didn't miss a field goal. They had negative 0.85 kickoff return EPA because they had 1 long-ish kickoff return, but nothing like crazy. Scrimmage production, 63 plays. It was really interesting because plays run and time of possession were actually pretty even.
Yeah.
South Carolina ran 63, Georgia ran 66, but Georgia had 516 yards and South Carolina had 299. Yards per play, that is 7.82 to 4.75. That is a differential of almost 3, almost 4. Negative 12 EPA, like I said, for South Carolina's offense. So, it was sort of a drubbing. I will say, in the passing game for South Carolina, there were some moments where South Carolina got some stuff going. They had 214 passing yards, 6.9 yards per play. They had a negative 2.92 EPA because when they weren't hitting deep third down passes, they weren't really hitting anything at all. Zeb Nolan got injured early on, right after I think 3 or 4 plays, but Luke Doty came in and 13 for 26, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 1 sack, 45.2 xQBR for Luke Doty. I would say of those 153 yards, the ones that really stand out for UGA was Josh Vann had 3 catches for 128 yards on 8 targets and a touchdown. Then Jalen Brooks had 3 catches for on 5 targets for 54 yards. So I would say totally dominant defense, top to bottom, except for a couple of big pass plays. I think Amir Speed was kind of the guy that South Carolina thought that they could target, and they had some success there. We're going to get into this more later, but I think one of the big things that you take away is that sometimes there's just no defense for a perfect pass. It doesn't necessarily, explain away or make the performance better by the pass defense, but I would say of those 5 receptions from Josh Vann, 2 of them were kind of just sometimes that happens, and when it does, there's really nothing you can do about it. So you got to tip your cap and just move on to the next thing.
That's that one play with Josh Vann that there was one just unreal catch.
Yeah, he caught one over his head one-handed, and it's
and around the defender, he was being defended properly.
Amir Speed had good position, and I don't necessarily I'm not trying to bag on Amir Speed. I never really want to bag on any football player, especially one who doesn't get paid for what they do. But I'm just saying, sometimes, you have a player that just has a good day, and you have to just incorporate into your defensive game plan that you're going to give up some yards, and that's just how it is. On the year, Georgia, this was a game that really helped Georgia's advanced metrics from an offensive standpoint, and slightly hurt Georgia's defensive metrics, although the hurt was slight because they gave up basically 1 touchdown, which is more than given up all year. Georgia is up to the 41st ranked offense per EPA. They are the 28th ranked explosiveness offense and the 84th ranked success rate offense. So this is an offense that is not very efficient. They are not great at getting steady amounts of yards, but they will throw a deep pass on you or have a big play overall. 52nd stuff rate, so that's average. 78th line yard rank, that's below average. They're not really doing a great yard of generating easy yards at the beginning of runs. 113th rush EPA rank and 14th pass EPA rank. So I think at this point, it's I don't know if it's fair to say that UGA has a running problem, because it's hard to say that the second or first ranked team in the nation has a problem. But I think it is something that we can at the very least say that UGA has not been productive running wise. Other things that stand. No, go ahead.
On that point, though, just from a standard, just the eye test, watching the game over the course of the day, it seemed like there weren't a lot of holes being made properly from the O-line for the run game to get started. But then again, that might not have been the real objective of the run game at the time. It didn't seem like we were looking for explosive plays. It seemed like at the times we were running the ball, it was intentional that we were just trying to get continue to let the clock run. I wouldn't be super concerned about the rank. At least that's how I personally feel. How do you feel about that so far?
I mean, I think that there's some things we need to clean up, and I think that there's an element to it where it's like you're going to take what the defense gives you, and it's pretty clear that UJ thinks that they are better at taking pass yards that the defense gives them than running yards. I think that there's some play selection problems, and we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
To finish out our advanced stats update, defensively, UJ is the second EPA defense in the nation, fourth in success rate, fifth in explosiveness rank. So I mean, basically just good, like probably still the best defense in the nation, I think, by a pretty good margin. 38th stuff rate rank, 18th line yards rank, fifth in rush EPA, second in pass EPA, first in standard down EPA, 36th in pass down EPA. So, giving up a little bit more in the passing game than they are in the running game situationally, but, so some of those big third down completions sort of account for that. But still, the fifth ranked rusher EPA and the second ranked pass EPA, it's really hard to say that you have too bad of a problem. Passing down EPA rank 36th, havoc rate rank 37th, and points per opportunity rank first. So points per opportunity is how many points you get each time you possess the ball inside of the opponent's 40. So Georgia is, at this point in the year, doing that better than anybody in the nation, which is pretty clear because they really have only been like 3 or 4 successful drives from opponents against this Georgia defense, and only one of them resulted in a touchdown. You have this note here about how stats tell us that we were never in trouble, but would a better team take advantage of the mistakes we made and how? I mean, I think that this is a team at this point where it's like you're going to have to have a transcendent offense. You're going to have a transcendent wide receiving day, right? You're going to have a quarterback who can deliver the ball, and you're going to have a wide receiver who is one of the better wide receivers in the nation. Because you're not, I mean, one of my big takeaways from this game, and I think if you haven't seen this UGA defense play in person, you really should try to, even if it's against some nobody team. One of my big takeaways is like you just shouldn't run on this team. I mean, every time South Carolina ran the inside draw play, it was just like, or not inside draw, but every time they ran inside zone, there was nothing happening. And if you look at like South Carolina's rush numbers on the day, they were, let's see, 31 rushes for 92 yards. Right. They had 8 stuffed runs. So 1 out of 4 of the runs was stuffed for, less than 0 game. They had 15 stopped runs, which was, so 48% of their runs were less than or equal to 2 yards. So more than half the time that they ran, they got less than 2 yards. Right. They had, only, 13 opportunity runs, which is more than 4 yards. Right. So, I don't know. I mean, you just shouldn't run on this team. And, even in the passing game, you really shouldn't run left or right on this team. This continues to be this Georgia defense, to me, the most impressive thing that they do is run sideline to sideline. And if you run horizontally on this team, you're really not going to be able to do much. And it was very clear that South Carolina figured this out very, very early, that they just had no chance of running the ball with any kind of, like, I don't know, efficiency, basically. What are some do you have any observations? Like overall kind of things that you take away from this?
I definitely found myself at times thinking out loud that at times the game felt sloppy. And that's why that note's in there in the first place in our notes, just thinking, would a better team take advantage of the mistakes we made? And, digging into the stats, we can kind of decide like, were there mistakes like that, the kind of mistakes that we would have been punished for? But at the end of the day, I think that the scoreboard says we would have been fine, even if the turnovers resulted in a little something different. Like 3 turnovers in the day is not great, but they didn't result in anything because this defense is just playing lights out. Like you said, like just to kind of build on what you said a moment ago, I really like looking at the EPA per play for the teams we've played so far, because basically every time South Carolina decided to run the ball, their EPA was negative 0.25. Like you're losing points every time you decided to run the ball. And on top of that, they were losing points every time they decided to throw the ball, negative 0.09. And we can say that this run game didn't really get started, or it might not be, what it needed to be for Georgia, but they still have a positive EPA per play on rushes. And it just feels like we're doing what we need to do right now. I feel like the narrative that we tend to attribute to Georgia, especially early in the season, is that they're doing what they need to be doing without doing too much. They're preserving their energy to an extent, but doing as much as they need to. But this year it feels different because it feels like they're also setting a tone. Like really, I went into yesterday thinking I'm not yet convinced that this is a team that will score just because they can. I am coming away from this game thinking this is a team that will just score because they can, and so that is the tone shift
Yeah.
for me, the tonal shift, and I feel really good about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to build off of what you're saying there, like it didn't feel to me like we went too deep in the playbook in terms of just like what we feel we can do. We ran some tunnel screens to Brock Bowers, who that's one of my observations is that Brock Bowers is freaking special. Brock Bowers is, I mean, the most productive tight end that we've had in a very long time this early in his career. And I don't think that that's going to stop. He had his first drop of the year in this game, and it was kind of shocking to me. Like I was like, "Whoa, a pass
Is
in his
he
hands,
okay?
he didn't catch it?" Because it's like he's human. He bleeds just like us. Like it was pretty remarkable. But we did some flood stuff. We did some all go stuff. We did some crossing stuff. We ran mesh a couple of times, and I think in the past we've said like, oh well. UGA is not going very deep into their playbook as an excuse for why the offense wasn't clicking. And the difference is, I don't really feel like we went that deep in the playbook and the offense was still clicking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we ran a couple of those pop passes. We ran a little like jet sweep motion. We ran some pitches, which we had run in the past. But I mean, there was not really anything in this that I was like, oh, damn, that's like, that's crazy. I mean, the goal line passing touchdown to James Cook, which was his second on the day. That one was a very interesting play because you had contrary motion coming across, and then you actually had two very open receivers. Jalen Johnson was open on the other side on the contrary motion actually, but that was a really well designed play. But I mean, it wasn't anything like, it wasn't like crazy. It was just a good play. It wasn't like a trick play or any kind of wrinkle. So I think really that's the big difference in this team, like you said. And I mean, I wrote in my observations like UGA has an excellent pass offense ? And they really do.
About?
I mean, yeah, by EPA, this is the 14th ranked pass offense in the nation, right? I mean, this is a legitimate passing option. I mean, I think the only other things I would say is in terms of the rushing offense, we had some success running the ball on quick plays on power. I thought we did a pretty good job on power. And if we look at our stats for the year, UGA has basically run inside zone read 21% of the time, which is 21 times, which is 17% of their offensive plays on the year, and they have a 38% success rate on it. Outside zone has been run 8 times, and they have a 50% success rate on it. Inside power has been run 13 times, which is 10% of their passes overall, and has a 46% success rate. So, I get it. Like, inside zone read is a very important play to sort of modern football, the way modern football works. But if that is going to be your bread and butter play that you run when you don't know what else to run, when you run to set up the run, and you're only going to have 38% success rate on it, you really got to start thinking about your play selection. I think some of that pitch stuff, I think some of that split zone stuff, I think getting some stuff with some, inside power, running at 46% success rate, that shows that we are able to move offensive linemen around. I mean, I think we have a very athletic offensive line, and I saw a couple of times where we ran power and we had Jamari Sawyer coming across formation, and we ran like power pitch out to I think Zeus, and Jamari Sawyer was coming across and just like decleated a dude. Like, I think that really works more to our strengths at this point as a team than inside zone read, which I just is a play. I know how important it is, and I know that it's like not sexy and that we're gonna keep running it no matter what, but it just seems like we're not executing it very well. Defensively, it seemed like that South Carolina wanted to try to pick on Amir Speed and Keely Ringo.
Yeah.
I think Amir Speed is a dude who is very big and can play close to the line of scrimmage really well, and he can run with guys. But, against elite guys, which if UGA wants to win the Natty, they're going to have to play some elite guys. He probably gives up a step. I think Keely Ringo doesn't give up a step to anyone. I think he has elite ball skills. But I saw him sort of get out of position. He wasn't in phase with his wide receiver every time. He kind of bites on moves a little bit too much in this career. I mean, he's only a sophomore, and that's all right. Hold on one second.
Oh.
I'm all right. My takeaway is I have two takeaways from three. One, we really need Tyke Smith back. I think that getting a guy who was an All-American, and I think David Daniel also would really help. I think, Dan Jackson, who is the walk-on, who is playing a lot of safety for us, 46. He's done a great job, but I mean, you can tell that there have been moments where teams have had chances against him, and the rest of the defense has been so good that it hasn't mattered. But I think getting Tyke Smith back really shores up a lot in this defense, which I think we might get next week. So that's great.
That's great. Yeah.
I also think I'm very excited to see this offense with Darnell Washington, Kyrus Jackson, and Dominic Blaylock all back at 100%. And when you get those four guys back, Tyke, Darnell, Kyrus, and Dom, I mean, my last takeaway is that UGA can win the Natty this year.
Yeah.
And I know that's like a big thing, but I tweeted before this game that I just feel confident. And I woke up on Saturday morning and I felt like we were going to kind of name the score on them, which we kind of did.
Yeah.
I think we could have scored 50 on this team if we'd wanted to, but we didn't want to. And I didn't see anything across college football yesterday that told me that UGA can't win the Natty. Some things have to break, but I think it just is what it is. Like, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Let's do prediction. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a very exciting season, definitely, and it's starting out the way that we wanted it to, I will say. After we get through prediction review, I want to talk about I've got the game on paper up for a couple other teams that I want to talk about, just looking ahead on the season. But
let's wait for prediction review. Go ahead and hit me with one.
Okay. So this is I pulled up the Georgia Tech Clemson game, then I pulled up the Alabama Florida game. And the reason why I pulled up the Georgia Tech Clemson game, because it was an absolute mess. It basically was Clemson playing solitaire and Georgia Tech trying to get their they're just spinning their wheels. But it was Clemson's game to lose, and I think the stats show that pretty well also. I'm going to pop that into the chat for you to check out as well if you'd like to. But this is the wild thing. Like, Clemson, if Georgia Tech kept passing the ball, the stats say they would have won the game, but they decided to keep trying to run the ball for some reason, and they kept a pretty balanced game. They ended up running 85 plays to Clemson 72, and Clemson gave up the ball twice, lost it more than that, but recovered it more than that. But it just seemed like very much like a Benny Hill sort of meets college football game where Clemson they seemed so rattled. And I think that they're gonna drop one, maybe two games this year, and I think one of those games might be to this South Carolina team once this South Carolina team figures it out. But what are your thoughts on that situation?
On Tech or on Clemson?
Clemson. I'm not worried about Tech as much. Tech could,
Tech has a decent defense this year, but they've just been kind of trash on offense so far. I mean, I don't. We're a quarter of the way through the season this year, and I don't think it's too early to say like Clemson has an offense problem, right? I mean, I didn't get to watch all of that game, but I did go back and watch the like quick highlight of it, and what I saw was that just TJ does not look like he is as decisive as he was last year. And on the year, even with some bad losses, this Georgia Tech defense, unadjusted for opponent, has played pretty well. But there's really no excuse for that. I mean, at this point, Clemson is 6th in defensive EPA. They're 27th in success rate EPA defensively. They are 8th in explosiveness rank defensively. They're 13th in rush EPA defensively and 15th in pass EPA defensively. This is still an elite defensive team. But if we go down their offensive numbers, 119th in overall offensive EPA. That is bad.
That's
73rd in success rate EPA. 124th in explosiveness rate EPA. That is down there with like UConn, right? The only thing they're good at is getting steady short gains, right? 18th in stuff rate rank. They don't get stuffed very often. 40th in line yards rank, so they're getting small runs pretty consistently. 54th in rush EPA rank and 127th in pass EPA rank. I think that I don't want to say that Clemson is limited at wide receiver, but it's pretty clear that Justin Ross is not enough, right, at this point. And man, that's wild to me. I mean, 123rd in standard down EPA offensively, 74th in pass down EPA offensively, 65th in havoc rate surrendered, and 85th in PPO rank. So it's like they're not good at consistently running the ball. They're just actively bad at consistently passing the ball. They're not explosive, and they're not converting their opportunities into points. And like you said, at some point that's going to cost you a couple of games.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just this is a weird Clemson team. Defense
Yeah,
good, offense very bad.
I think part of the problem is they have not really recruited at a like sort of Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia level on the
Hmm.
offensive line, and B, it's pretty clear at this point that they are just sort of average when it comes to uh, when it when it comes to their offensive skill talent. They're
Hmm.
basically average.
Yeah, yeah, and to say that like when I wonder when the last time is that Georgia Tech had more yards than Clemson, because they did. They had 20 more yards in the day than Clemson did, and
Mm-hmm.
it just comes down to the fact they ran 6 more plays, I think. But it's a very weird day,
Mm-hmm.
weird day for football. The other weird game that is potentially concerning, but maybe not, is the Alabama Florida game. Alabama 31 and Florida 29. At no point did Alabama, according to the stats, they were never actually in danger, according to the stats. But Florida put up a pretty good fight, I would say. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about just looking through these stats. If it's something, these stats seem to suggest that through the eye test of this game, do we have to worry about Florida as much as this game would suggest, or was it more so just it was a close game and it was just a close game? And so,
Um, well, I mean, I think what I take away from it is Florida can run the ball
mhm.
pretty well, and them running the ball 25th in EPA overall offensively. They're second in the nation in rush EPA rank, and they're not a triple option team, which is really impressive. But they're 81st in pass EPA rank, right? 10th in standard down EPA, 70th in pass down EPA, and then 75th in PPO, which I think has to do with their lack of passing attack. I think this is a team that you're worried about if you can't stop the run.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that I'm worried about them or that I'm not worried about them because I think they're actually pretty talented. Defensively, they haven't had quite the foibles that they have in the past. 22nd in explosiveness rank, they're not giving up these giant plays. 70th in SR rank, which tells me that they're losing out a little bit just on efficiency. But 22nd in rush EPA, 52nd in pass EPA, 66th in standard down, 17th in pass down, 83rd in Havoc. They're not really getting home a lot, which is weird because this is a Todd Grantham defense, but 103rd in PPO. So it seems like that profile tells me that they are just like they are giving up steady yards and they are getting death by thousands of cuts, but they are not a bad defense, and
Mhm.
they can run the shit out of the ball. I mean, they were running. Emory Jones can run the ball. Anthony
Mhm.
Richardson can run the ball. They were running. They just did not have the speed option that Florida was running. Alabama didn't have an answer for it. Now, on the one hand, it's concerning because it's clear that Florida has, found something that they like. I mean, this
Yeah.
is probably an offense that's closer to what Dan Mullen wants to run. It's very reminiscent of some of these Florida offenses in the past. On the other hand, if that offense plays a defense that can really stop the run and force them to pass, they haven't proved that they can do it yet. 52nd pass EPA in the nation is okay, you know, but I don't totally believe in that. Alabama wise, I mean, I think the thing is that this Alabama team is very good. They might
Yeah.
be the most well-rounded team in the nation. They're 37th in offensive EPA, 49th in defensive EPA, but I don't think that they have the kind of world records defensively that they had in the past, right? We talk a lot about how Alabama, switched in 2013 from being a defense first team to an offense first team. But the thing that all of those Lane Kiffin offenses have always had is they always had a dude on the other side who was like Christian Miller, who like even if they were giving up 28 points a game, they had a dude who could just absolutely erase you on the defensive line or
Yeah.
in the linebacking core. And they just don't have that. I mean, Henry To'o looked lost at times yesterday. They lost, I think, their best linebacker for the full year. To me, I mean, what I take away from this is that this Florida game is going to be more of a challenge than we thought at the beginning of the year, but still very winnable.
Mhm.
And that this Alabama team, I'm not saying that Georgia should be favored against them, but I do think that this Alabama team has some chinks in the armor that they haven't had in the past because they have a lot of 5 stars, but nobody. I don't think that they really have anybody who stepped up defensively. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Florida ran the same 4 or 5 plays for basically the second half.
Yeah.
Damn, sorry.
You're good.
All right.
Yeah. It's definitely, yeah. That I They're going to be tough games, and piece of conversation that kept coming up yesterday when we were talking kind of about the rest of the season was, are we going to play Alabama twice? And is that going to be the team to beat? Or are we adding Florida into the mix? You know, we even talked about it before the season started at Clemson and the Florida games. Those are two not full question marks. Clemson was more of a question mark than Florida, but as Florida is figuring this out, I think we're better matched to Florida still than Alabama just based on personality and schematically. You know, if they played the same game, if you replaced Alabama with Georgia yesterday, I think Georgia wins that game against Florida. It's a touch more questionable against this Alabama team if we replaced Florida with Georgia, just because
I don't think we're playing. I don't think you play Florida twice, because I think if you beat Florida the first time, they're not going, because they'll have 2 losses, right?
Oh no, I meant Alabama twice. Are we going to play Alabama twice though?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if you get to the SEC championship, you're probably undefeated, and I think if this team makes it to the SEC championship undefeated, they'll probably be favored against Alabama. And the last time they played Alabama and they were favored, I was like, there's no fucking way this should not be happening. We are going to lose. And then we did, in the most horrible way possible. But I actually think we kind of, right now against Alabama, I mean, oh wow, I'm getting like horrible flashing. Is that okay? There we go. Sorry. Right now against Alabama, this team, I mean, there's not a lot that this team doesn't do better than Alabama. Like in a, just using my comparison sheet right now in a theoretical matchup, like even UGA's sort of, I don't know, work in progress offense against Alabama, you know, we probably wouldn't be able to run the wall very well, but I think we could pass on this team. I think we could get some, you know, pick our spots with the rushes. And then, you know, Alabama's offense versus Georgia's defense, I think that is a matchup that favors Georgia, even with all the talent they had, even with Michi. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if you get to play Alabama for the first time, you might not need to play them again. Obviously you could see a rematch, but I just, right now this Georgia defense is just playing so well.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I have this little big picture stats comparison sheet that just has a lot of these sort of advanced metrics that we look through that compares them side by side. And there's really not a category when Alabama has the ball that Georgia has not been better at than them. Line yards. Alabama is 17th in the nation offensively. Georgia is 18th defensively. That's the only time that it's even really that close. Like Georgia is in the top 10. I have 16 metrics that I measure. And Georgia is in the top 10 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. And of those 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are either 1 or 2 in the nation.
Feels good.
So, I mean, there's not really a team in the nation right now that Georgia would feel like they could not play ball defensively with.
Yeah. And yeah. What's that?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, other honorable mentions, I would say, just other teams that are looking interesting based off the last 3 weeks. You know, we have a very, I like that we have a very eclectic top 10 right now. Like it's not just like 4 or 5 SEC teams necessarily. We've got Oregon up there at the top. We have Oklahoma, Iowa who's playing really, really well. And I think that, you know, any one of those 3 teams, and add Penn State in there, sure, why not? Any of those teams could sneak into the top 4 for the playoffs later in the season as long as they don't implode at any point. But a few of those teams have already gotten their hardest regular season games out of the way. And so there is a very good chance that if one of the top 4 loses in their championship, we might not see one of those. We might not see that team again in the playoffs. So it's an interesting thing to kind of consider and to just kind of reflect on going forward too.
I would not necessarily be worried about an Iowa matchup because I think Iowa plays the kind of ball like people always say like Iowa gets you to play like Iowa and that's how they beat you. But the thing is like not so secretly Kirby Smart wants to play like Iowa.
Oh, 100%.
That would be like throwing a pig into a mud pit, and it's like I hate to reference like a racist story, but it's very much like Brer Rabbit, don't throw me in that briar patch. Like, oh no, a Kirby Smart team has to play a defensively oriented game where field possession or time of possession matters. Like, oh no. Oregon is a little bit more interesting, but you know, I don't know that I necessarily, outside of Kayvon Thibodeau, really believe in that offense that much. one thing that's, I mean, yeah, but I think your overall like sort of just analysis of the way the playoff field would break down is very accurate. Where it's like there are enough people who are having good seasons and enough good teams who have had at the very least scares at this point in the year
Mm-hmm.
that this could be a 2007 or a mini 2007 where it's like the people who end up in the playoff are just a weird list.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Because a few of those teams do meet
Yeah.
each other, like Penn State and Iowa. Whoever wins that game
Yeah.
is in very good standing, unless one of them is beaten by Team Chaos.
Now,
But yeah,
kind of has the inside track, right? I mean, you could always see Iowa. I mean, I'm about to curse, so gird your
ready.
loins. But Iowa has just had sort of like a dog shit offense this year.
yeah,
I was putting them into my stat sheet here, which I love more than some of the people that I know. Because I birthed this thing on my loins, but like 109th overall EPA, 96 success rate, 90th explosiveness rate, 104th stuff rate rank, 92nd line yards, 77 rush EPA, 115 pass EPA, 101st standard downs, 91st pass downs, 60th havoc rank, 89th PPO. That's bad.
yeah.
And I
It
mean,
leaves
their
some to be desired there.
Yeah, more than something, dog. That's like 2019 Georgia bad. And then they're on the other hand, Iowa's defense is very good, right? 10th in overall EPA, 55th in success rate, first in explosiveness rank, 40th in stuff rate, 50th in line yards, 48th in rush EPA, 6th in pass EPA. So like that's a legitimate defense. It would be a low scoring game, but it's like Kirby hired an air raid offensive coach, but at night he still dreams about running the wing T and the inverted veer. He still dreams about like the I formation and fullbacks and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Right. And so like I don't think that that's a game that like would particularly upset him.
So let's hit some prediction review then.
Yeah, because we could talk about this all day because I can just switch between teams and that it's too much power.
It's too much power for one man. Yeah, first over under was 3.5 UGA sacks. We only got 2 on the day. We both thought it would be over, so that was not a disappointment. I'll say we did what we needed to do. Second over under was 2.5 running back touchdowns from Georgia. I said under, you said over. It was less, but I did not expect this to happen the way that it did, which is not to say it was a bad thing by any means, but our identity seems to be changing, which is odd.
Yeah, it's very interesting because like James Cook had, I think, 2 touchdowns, right?
I believe so.
I want to make sure. Yeah, James Cook had a 23-yard rushing touchdown, and then he had in the fourth quarter a receiving touchdown. Well, no, actually it is over. I was wrong because James Cook had 1 running run, 1 passing, and then Zamir White had 1 running. But I don't know. I think the RB touchdowns probably the spirit of it was running, right? Not passing.
Yeah, absolutely. You still want to see your boy Brock Vandergriff. We did not see him, unfortunately.
It's seeming increasingly unlikely at this point.
I think so. Yeah, the further we get into the season, I don't think we're going to see him much. We're going to see a lot more Stetson.
Maybe Charleston Southern.
That could happen. We might just see every quarterback in the rotation. We'll get Jackson out there.
I might play. And
I
might be like the starting left tackle against Charleston Southern.
We're going to give JT some PTO for that weekend. Go do whatever you want to do. Jackson's going to run the offense.
Yeah, JT's just like posted up in a turtleneck in some wine bar in Decatur.
I love that.
Hitting on all the 45-year-old homies.
Oh, and then
it's
finally,
like, Shawty, you drive that minivan? Hell yeah.
Let me see the inside of your SUV.
As hell.
That's practical
as hell. Minivans get better MPGs. They hold more. Trucks, baby. Trucks are just big sedans. I respect that minivan.
That's true, though.
I got this chain on. Anyway.
Got this chain on, baby. And then the overall score. You said 42-10. I said 32-10. I didn't expect us to cover in that way. And yeah, you came away with that win. So I'm happy. I
want to point out that I was 6 points off on the final score, which makes me feel very, very powerful. Although I will say, prediction-wise, I do believe that you are still just absolutely raw dogging me on tally site.
I actually haven't checked. I didn't do any tally site this past weekend, so it is all good.
Yeah, but I think you had such a good day. Last week. It was pretty bad. Hold on. Trying to see. they've somehow made it harder.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you like this? Why you like this?
Why you do this?
Anyway,
we'll have to look at this in a bit. Yeah.
we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So our next segment of the show, of course, is our Ask CBC segment of the show. We've been getting some Gmails. Some emails have been coming in, which is really nice.
We got some Gmails today.
We got some Gmails. I did. I put them right in there. So yeah, thanks for coming out, y'all, and hitting us with those good old fashioned emails. So our very first question comes from Sarge. What's your favorite adjective for a great defense? Because the announcers, you might not know this, Nathan, but the announcers were going in on all the different just adjectives. They were just kind of, it was as if they had their thesaurus open and they were just going kind of down the list. We had salty, we had suffocating, we had stifling, and a lot of them, of course, started with S's. So hit me with your favorite adjective for a defense.
Transcendent.
Ooh, transcendent. Yeah. Opposing. I'd say, foiling. I think that'd be really good.
Stultifying.
Stultifying. Arresting.
What about one of my favorites is just reliable. Because that's what gives me that's what calms my heart.
Yeah, I like that. Irked Russell asks, would all-time UGA sacks leader David Pollock start on this year's defense?
No,
I don't think so.
I mean, David Pollock was a very good player and he was relentless, but like he's sort of a in many ways, the reason he wouldn't start is not because of his like talent. It's just because he's not the kind of player that starts on defenses now. I mean, he might still. It's just like
it's very different now, though. I would say.
I mean, it's just like the default answer to any of these questions about would past players start on today's teams is no, because nutrition and training and body fat content and technology is just so much better now that like people are just, if you took like 18-year-old David Pollock or 19-year-old David Pollock from 2004 or whatever and just plopped him onto this team with the same amount of preparation that he had back then, no, he probably would not. Now, if you brought David Pollock into the 2021 UGA program at 18 and developed him, then maybe, yeah. But I mean, that just even in the 15, 16 years since he graduated, that there has been a complete revolution in the way that you treat injuries, in the way that you train, in the way that you develop, in the way that you gain strength and speed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and then on top of that, like particularly at the position that he would be playing, he'd probably either be playing defensive end or like jack linebacker, which is like the heavier of the two linebackers. And it's like he's competing with let's see, Trayvon, not Carter, but what's Trayvon's last name? 44. Walker. Sorry.
Walker, yeah.
He's competing with Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. Like, I mean, the thing that was remarkable about him is that he was a very good athlete, but he's also just scrappy, and he never quit on any play, and that got him a long way. But I'm just not sure that he would, man. All right, next question. I'm sorry.
His second question: would the sugar huddle be a good counter to our D-line shifts? And if you want to hit us with a little bit of explanation there.
Yeah, so the sugar huddle is it's a thing that I think the sugar huddle terminology actually first came from Gus Malzahn. It's a very Gus Malzahn thing to do. It's where you huddle close to the line of scrimmage. You send sometimes the wide receivers and tight ends out early. Then the whole offense turns around all at once and then runs up to the line and snaps it quick. We saw a lot of sugar huddling from UGA versus Clemson because Clemson has a very, very well documented history and reputation as a team that steals plays signals. And I'm not saying that makes them dirty. I think if your play signals get stolen, that means they're not complicated enough, right? They're not working. But they have a well-documented history of that. And so UGA was using the sugar huddle and basically calling in each play individually, verbally, and then snapping from there because like basically the way Clemson, what they do when they steal signals is they figure out what your play is and they send in a last-minute substitution. But if you just run up to the line and snap the ball, then they can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. I think that would help. And at this point, against if I was playing UGA's defense, that is something I would probably do just to avoid those shifts, especially if it was UGA at home, because at this point it is sort of a drinking game where you're like, the defensive line caused another offsides penalty with a shift, drink, but which would get you real drunk, really, actually. But I don't know how much it would help, because a lot of the way that teams have tried to scheme against UGA has been making pre-snap adjustments and post-snap adjustments, and when you
Mm-hmm.
sugar huddle, you don't have time to do that, right? And part of the problem when you sugar huddle is that, like, if the play doesn't match what the defense has called, you're kind of screwed. And UGA is very, very good at executing mid-play and even post-snap, like pre and post-snap shifts, right? UGA is like, that's their reputation is they execute everything, any kind of defense, and they can shift in and out of them very, very easily at this point in the year. And so I think it would help solve one problem, but it would actually put you farther behind. Like, you would have fewer false start penalties, but more like pick sixes. So,
John Luca Dogs, how much does this game change how you view the secondary?
I mean, not really. I thought that our secondary was limited because of injury before, and I still think that. And I think it's even more important to get David Daniel and Tyke Smith back. I think that we put a lot on Star, and we were running our base defense. The Star is usually one-on-one with a slot and has to play man, maybe with some safety help. And the problem is that when your Star is your second or third option, and then your safety help is your second or third option, that hurts you, right? And I mean, I think Dan Jackson's played well. I thought Amir Speed played well, but I think it didn't really change my opinion, because I thought that it was a work in progress, and I still think it's a work in progress.
Yeah. Abby asks, what's your favorite conspiracy theory, sports related or non-sports related?
Well, I try not to mess with like real life conspiracy theories, because the last 2 years have shown that they are very dangerous. But sports related, I mean, I kind of actually believe that the NBA. I don't just believe. Like, I'm pretty sure that the NBA favors big market teams. Like, I'm almost certain. I think that the Sacramento Kings reffing thing in the 1999 maybe conference finals against the Lakers. Like, I think the frozen envelope thing with David Stern and the New York Knicks. I kind of believe those. I think that if the motivation of your conspiracy theory is just like naked greed from corporations, I'm way more likely to believe it than if the motivation for your conspiracy theory is like Satanists want to traffic children or whatever. Right. So, yeah. What about yours?
2. 1 being the hollow earth theories out there. They're hilarious. And just if you want
Not that you believe them, but just they're funny.
I like that they exist, and there are people that believe those things. There's there's hollow earth theories that like the governments all know, and they push false science so that they don't so that the general public doesn't know. And it's a way, like, some people think that that's how like the internet works, for instance, or there's some people who think that ancient aliens lived inside of the earth, and things like that. It's pretty bonkers. Or that the Nazis were using the hollow earth on the inside to win World War II, essentially, and the United States used it against them to actually win World War II. Like, there's so many. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. Super, super weird. There's also some really fun conspiracy theories about like Sesame Street being like brainwashing or propaganda to change like the reason why American kids became more progressive as generations went on is because Sesame Street was like communist propaganda of some kind. So yeah, I can go down a deep rabbit hole on some wacky conspiracy theories, but we'll try not to here. Because as you said, they are dangerous. Next question was a pocket paper. Do you want to hit us with that one? Someone dropped a paper in your pocket, and it was Ask CBC.
So Abby, without speaking about it, stuck a folded up sheet of paper into my pocket at the Sousa show on Saturday. And these are 2 from Ben. One is, what plane do you wish Magic the Gathering would return to? And I open that up to you.
Mirrodin.
Really?
I want to go back to Mirrodin. Yeah, Mirrodin's my favorite plane.
Isn't
other
that
than
where the Brothers War is? Because they're about to do the Brothers War.
Are they? Ooh.
Yeah, the Brothers War is like 2 or 3. Like Urza. Oh no, that's Dominaria. Yeah, Mirrodin,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
Mirrodin. That's where you got the mirrors and like all of
All the
the
artifacts, all those
all the
things. Yeah.
artifact stuff. Oh my god, you want to go back to
Mm,
Artifact Winter? You trash human.
I was an affinity
Uh,
deck.
you absolute piece of trash. Um,
uh, I also
let's see.
really love what's the one that we had a few back that had to do with the Aether. I forget which
Like
plane that was.
Kaladesh.
Yeah, I really like Kaladesh as well.
Yep. I really dig Ravnica is my favorite all-time plane, but they've done that a lot. I love the guild arc. And if you don't know about Magic, just skip forward about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I love the guild, like the way the guilds are and like the personality that they all have, and I just
they're
love how
really
cleanly
cool.
the archetypes. And like my favorite guild is Gruul, and I really like, which kind of makes me a piece of trash also. And so that they came from Ravnica originally, but I mean, I actually really liked Call Time. I thought Call Time was like a very flavorful, fun set. So I hope that we go back to it one day.
That'd be fun.
All right, what's your favorite Planeswalker?
I really love Karn and I love Urza. Urza because I read a bunch of the Magic books when I was younger, and Urza was a big piece of that. And a lot of those books took place in Dominaria because most of Magic takes place in Dominaria. But what about you?
Well, most of the first, you know, the first like 10 to 15 sets, like that was the default settings.
Yeah.
My favorite is the first Dome re-raid Planeswalker, because I'm sort of a Temmie at heart.
Aw.
And I really just like big dumb cards, and like Dome re-raid from Gate Crash is just the dumbest big like keyword big number guy. Like you look for creatures and then you can make them fight creatures, but then also the ending thing is like you get an emblem that says creatures you control have double strike, trample, hexproof, and haste, and like every ultimate that basically just says you win the game, and I just love it.
Oh, honorable mention plane is Kamigawa. We didn't get enough Kamigawa.
Kamigawa. I think we're going back to Kamigawa too. Yeah, that's the Cyberpunk plane.
Yeah, the site like the Shogun
Neon...
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's Kamigawa Neon something. I'm really, really excited. Neon Dynasty. I'm really excited about that because I love Cyberpunk, and I like that Magic is trying to go past like European Renaissance fantasy, and so like Kamigawa looks so freaking cool, and it still has a strong fantasy element to it. All right.
Okay.
So this is the point when if you don't care about Magic the Gathering, that you can start listening again. So
yes. First question, or next question rather, are more. UGA has long had the identity of a team that relies heavily on the pass game and the tight end as a pass catcher. What do we need to do to implement a power running game?
This is a joke because I mean, like,
that is
I
not
will
at
say,
all.
I don't want to complain. Yeah, I don't want to complain about the offense too much because on the passing game, they're doing everything that we've been yelling about for the past like 20 years, right? We have like 2 or 3 legitimate tight end targets that we target a lot. Brock Bowers is the leading receiver on the team. We are a top 20 offense passing wise. So what do we need to do to implement a power running game? We need to stop calling inside zone as much. Or I think okay, you want to know the specific inside zone problem? Me and John, who is one of our percussion techs, we sit together at the games, and what we noticed is that on inside zone, the problem I think becomes that on inside zone, you have one of the guards doing a combo block and double blocking an interior defensive lineman with the center, and then that guard pushes off of that combo block and goes to the second level. And I think a lot of what happens when we have inside zone plays fail, especially when we have inside zone plays that cut to the outside, because or cut to the backside, because your normal inside zone read, I think, is, I'm pretty sure it's inside, outside, backside, whereas split zone is outside, backside, inside. Anyway, but basically, I think a lot of times when our zone plays fail, it's because the backside defender, either as an offensive lineman or either as an outside linebacker or as a defensive lineman, evades that combo block, and so that guard misses the combo block, and then the running back gets chased down from behind. And I think if you look at UGA's failed running plays, that's specifically the problem. All right.
Next question.
Oh, I just answered the next question.
You sure did?
I already kind of answered it. Sorry.
No, you're good. That next question was from Ryan Clark. Do you think the O-line struggles with run blocking are personnel related or coaching related?
I think it's both, right? But it's just there's a specific, and I think it's something that you can fix because I'm sure if I can see it, that they can see it, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Disney Dog. Does not being in Redcoats anymore get any easier asking for a friend?
yeah, yeah, it gets easier. I mean, I think I had a question from another young alumni who was recently out of Redcoats about this, and what I told them was that it's like it sucks not to be in it anymore, but the feeling of separation that you have from the organization is because of the newness of the feeling, not because you are actually separated from the organization, right? One of the things that's beautiful about sort of cooperative human endeavor, in particular, I think in the arts, is that, these things are like grown over time by the people in them. And like the band in any organization that you leave is strong today because of the things that you did in the past, right? And so you're still just as much a part of that as you were when you were in the band, right? The strength of the band is still you, even if you're not in it anymore, right? And I think that's the value of doing things in a cooperative way. I think, um, in the sort of metaphor I really like is like, when the leaf falls from the tree, it's no more or less part of the tree than it was when it was attached, right? And the tree only grows because of the strength lent to it by its leaves.
I like it when you try to tell people that you're an asshole or you're like just generally like I'm a bad guy kind of thing, and then you come out with things like that, and I'm like, oh Nathan, your softness is showing. The true
Don't
Nathan
tell
is
anyone.
coming through.
Yeah.
Next question's Trey Beckton. What has been Kirby's biggest Achilles heel since taking the head coach job?
I mean, I think a lot of the problems that he's had has been just from being a first-time head coach, and I think it's easy to forget. I don't. I think that the problem that he used to have, and I think this is sort of the Fromm problem and the Fields problem, and it's also the problem he had with offense in general. But I think it was also kind of the problem he had with game planning sometimes, is that like you have to learn lessons quickly, and that's sort of like a metacognitive lesson. It's not. I don't actually think his problem is like he doesn't have a passing offense, or he has too much hand in the offense, or he doesn't respect potential above experience. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue overall, I mean, like, yeah, I wish that he would be a little bit more pro potential, but I get his thought process in that, right? But I think the core issue is that to sort of evolve to be successful in a field that evolves quickly and that evolves in this sort of like recursive, responsive way where evolution happens because someone else finds an efficiency that you haven't found, right? And then they're better than you, and then you have to evolve too. And I think one of the things Kirby didn't really have figured out in like the 2015 2017 kind of era was that like you have to be quick on your feet in your thinking as a college football coach. And I think he has been. I think like people complained about Stet coming in, but it's like, look, man, I think it was pretty clear to anyone that was at that game that UJ was winning that game after they went up 14-0.
Oh yeah.
And so like I think Kirby probably thought, well, if we have a worst case scenario where Stet throws an interception on the first pass, we're probably not going to give anything up more than a field goal. So it makes sense, right? And yeah, I wish he had put Carson Beck in if he was going to put anybody in, but I get it, right?
Yeah.
From Kirby's perspective, I think that we get a little too enamored with star rankings, and I don't mean that to say that they don't matter. I mean to say that like if you think about the value added to a team, it's not directly correlated to star rankings. Like Stetson Bennett is a very valuable piece of this team in the sense that like he is a luxury that most very, very big teams don't have access to, which is a legitimate option at your second string quarterback, right? And I think to Kirby, like we think about it like, oh, well, we got to develop for the future, you got to develop for the future. But I think Kirby thinks I have to keep this guy happy who has another year of eligibility, right? Who has scrapped and clawed and who has left the program once already, because like I want him on the team next year willing to be the backup, right? So
Absolutely. This next question was a Gmail question. This came from Rachel Bailey, who sent it in for Andrew Bailey. The question is, what D&D spell would be most useful on the football field? And they know that we play D&D, obviously. Nathan and I are in the same D&D group that meets weekly. So we get to see a lot of each other, in addition to recording with each other each week. So what D&D spell would be most useful, Nathan?
I'm interested to hear your answer as well.
I have a few.
I have two or three I can think of. I think an obvious one is haste.
Yeah, or like Long Strider.
Like Yeah, it doubles your if it doubles your movement speed or your action economy, that means you're basically twice as fast. If you can imagine, like twice as fast Jordan Davis,
Mm-hmm.
twice as fast Adonai Mitchell, right? I mean,
The
it
way,
doesn't mean
yeah.
twice as fast as Zeus. Like,
Oh boy.
if you're a defensive coordinator, like who's casting the spell? Is the player
That's the real
casting the
question.
spell?
I don't
Because
know.
like haste is a concentration spell, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if the player's casting haste on themselves, then they're gonna have to make a bunch of concentration checks every time they get hit.
Mm-hmm.
If the coach is casting it, then slow or mass slow, I think would be really good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I found I think that Wall of Force would be really good, or
ooh,
like
yeah, yeah.
that would be super good. You basically cut off like entire lanes of the field, or one spell that I think already exists on the football field is just Vicious Mockery, which is Vicious Mockery is just one of those things where you unleash like a string of insults and it's enchanted and it hurts, so just making your words hurt. And there's a bunch of different spells that like make people sick, or like there's like vines that hold things into place and things like that. Hold person, command, charm. Like there's a bunch of, if you can think it or dream it, then it is a spell in D&D of some kind. But polymorph might be funny too. It'd be really good. Turn some folks into different things, sheep or frogs or whatever. Finally, I think that this has been one of my favorite new segments this year is Yara's Rage Against the Machine. And I think the Yara's Rage Against the Machine is very much a review episode segment, whereas Dr. James Barefield's Troll Corner can fit in anywhere, but
Yeah.
like they're kind of two sides of the same coin in a way. But I'm going to hit you with these in true Yara fashion, just all at once and very fast. Are you ready?
Some of these you're gonna have to answer because I haven't dated in a long time.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Not a question, but we beat the Cocks. Go Logs. Stick 'em.
Okay, that's great.
So I'm playing next week at the Vandy game. Who should I be looking out for? What's your official CBC score prediction? Yo, this is really early.
I think we're gonna win this game by like 30, 40 points.
Hey, yo, ya bitch got a first date this week. Please give me some good old-fashioned millennial advice.
Do you have an answer?
I think that, yeah, first dates are exciting because, this person likes you. And just remember that when you get nervous and your hands start to sweat and that kind of thing. And just be yourself. That's all.
Yeah, I can't give dating advice because I haven't dated in probably since you were like 3 or 4, kid. But I would say my relationship advice is that, if you don't enjoy time around each other, you shouldn't be dating.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of stupid, but like I don't think it's that complicated. Like
also, this is one thing that I think is really important that I've been thinking about a lot lately is like you have been on so many dates and you just maybe have not called them dates because we live in a society that romanticizes relationships and like keeps like romantic relationships separate from just platonic relationships, which in lots of ways they are different, but you do the same stuff. So you've been on so many dates. You're a dating pro because you've been on so many dates with your friends. And so,
nice.
Yeah, think about it. It's the same.
That's smart.
Same thing. You just might kiss, and that's pretty cool. But hey, kiss your
Yeah.
friends.
I'm not
complicated.
gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna say yeah about that, but yeah, the rest of it, I was.
All right, yeah, I got too chaotic. Do you think Stetson will start again after last night? Why or why not?
If there's an injury, yeah, I think he's the guy they'll go to. But I'm gonna say no because I don't want to wish any injuries into existence.
Yeah. Well, he could start like the Charleston Southern. But I think that JT will probably start.
Yeah,
and
but
then,
he could.
yeah, come right in after the first quarter or something. Who's your MVP of the team so far and why?
This is weird, but like, is it Brock Bowers? I think it's probably Jordan Davis is the honest answer. But if you were saying like who's the but I think it's Jordan Davis overall, and I think Jake Camarda as the punter has a like I think Jashley just pointed that out in their general chat, but I think just overall like Jordan Davis is the grease that
he's the guy.
moves the wheel of the number one defense. Yeah, he is that guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back around
Daddy. Anyway.
I'm going to come back around to this next question at the end, but I'm going to keep on rolling. What advice do you have for the dogs going into the road trip to Nashville?
don't go out in Nashville the night before, because if you don't do that, then you should win by 35 points.
Do you have a favorite Redcoat stance tune?
For a long tune, I like Power. For a short tune, I mean, I like Six. Like Six is kind of lame, but I've played it a lot. You know what I mean? It's fun.
Should I get a septum piercing? Have been contemplating it for a while, but also don't want to look like a bull.
I think the thing about body modification, and in particular piercings, is that like they'll heal up. So yeah,
they go away.
Like, let your freak flag fly, man.
I have a friend who has a septum piercing, and they will flip it down. It's like they'll flip it down when they're in casual mode, but in business mode, you can flip it back up. So you can hide it. You can hide that thing. Don't have to be out all the time. Second to last question. Why do we keep flopping in the fourth quarter, bro?
Because we're up by 25 points and we put in the second team. So yeah, that's why we gave up that touchdown. We had the entire touchdown. We had the entire second team defense on, and they moved the ball. I will say, hey, before we get to this last question, I do think that it bears mentioning that Yara was the first ever recipient of the Justin Smith Family Honorary Patreon Scholarship, and that Yara's questions are so good that someone else, another patron, paid for them to be on the Patreon, because that's how much we want their chaos in our lives. All right.
If you need someone to pay for your, what I'm getting from this is, if you need somebody to pay for your Discord subscription, then reach out to Justin Smith. Get him.
I mean, honestly, like if you just hit us in the DMs, like if it's that important,
help you out,
we can probably find someone who will support you in that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I just like to call out Justin, but yes, yeah, you're welcome. Join us. And final question: what's your favorite college story?
I mean, what's my favorite story, or what's my favorite story I'm going to tell in public?
That one's up to you. That's up for interpretation.
I mean, okay. Well, my favorite college story favorite's such a funny word, because like this was not a fun or good memory, but a college story that I really think was just sort of one of those weird moments where life imitates art and imitates like Western narrative was my last game in Redcoats. UGA was 6-6 and got into a bowl game, and we were playing UCF. We're playing Dan Leary, or no, what was that guy's name? Something O'Leary. Anyway, we're playing this coach's UCF team, they were also bad. They just snuck into a bowl game. And it was my last game as a Redcoat, and I was already really emotional, and we lost 10-6. It was just a miserable time. We were on the sidelines, and one of the UCF players said some really racist stuff to another Redcoat. It was Kevin Johnson. He probably still remembers this. And I walked out. We walked out of the stadium. We packed up our horns. This was at the packed all. So by the time we closed the truck, it was just me in the parking lot, and I saw the buses were like half a mile away through this giant parking lot, and I'm alone, and I start crying because my Redcoat career is over, and as I turn and slump my shoulders dejectedly, it just starts freaking pouring like a wall of water from heaven. And it was I had to walk all the way across the parking lot in squishy shoes, and I just was so bummed out. I refused to up my pace. I just sort of stomped forward, and we got there, and then I had to ride home to Memphis that night.
Jeez.
So I just got into the bus, still crying, changed my clothes, sat down, and had an 8-hour ride or whatever back to Athens. That's the favorite one I can tell. And then I guess my favorite one overall, but I've told this story before, was the whole Auburn blackout game deception thing. But that's in the archives, and I can tell that one later.
You got to go find that one.
Yeah.
My favorite college story is that I used to live with this guy named Slippery Mike. And this is a name he earned, Slippery Mike. And so the way that Slippery Mike earned his name is, first off, he was just a super weird guy. I lived in this house with 3 other guys, and they were all very, very strange in their own way. One of them was literally naked all the time. And I had to change a light in my bathroom once, and I fell out of the swivel chair that I was standing on stupidly, and he busted into my bathroom after hearing me crash onto the floor and tried to help me up, like butt naked. And I was also butt naked, and I'm just like, what's happening? Why is this happening? That's one of the guys. But Slippery Mike, we went to a
Right.
party that was like I believe it was a space pirate lube wrestling party is how it was advertised to us. And
What?
yeah, space
So you can't
pirate
just
lube
walk
wrestling
over that
party.
like it's normal.
Space pirate because of whatever the decor was. There were a lot of lasers and decor, and there was lube wrestling. And Mike, it was lost on Mike that lube wrestling is typically one of those like horny college things where it's like we're gonna get a lot of like scantily clad women to wrestle in lube. And so he came in his wrestling singlet because he was a high school wrestler. And he, at some point in the party, was upset that nobody was doing any wrestling. And so he stripped off into his singlet and started challenging partygoers to fight him. And after he kicked like 4 or 5 dudes' asses who just didn't want to deal with him yelling at them anymore, he started like spraying lube all over himself and yelling at the top of his lungs, "Who wants to fight Slippery Mike?" And that is one of my favorite college stories, I will say. I saw
like,
Mike.
I feel like everybody has a roommate that seems like they shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
You know
This
what
is
I'm
a real
saying?
person.
Like, yeah, you're like, there's no way that's a real human, but like
Mhm.
they are. I had a roommate like that too. His name was Koski, and Koski would just get up to some stuff, you know, like when the
Mhm.
Georgia Theater burned down, he was like at work, or yeah, he worked at the Game Day Suites downtown, and when the Georgia Theater downtown was burning down, he texted me and he was like, "Hey, come to my work, man." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, it's an emergency." And he took a picture of like the big smoke plume coming up from the Georgia Theater. So I drove over there because I was like, "Oh crap, like maybe something happened." And I get to his work, and he just like leads me up to the top of the roof, and he has like 2 chairs and beer or whatever, and just watch the Georgia Theater burn down.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's morbid. Well, that's our show. Do you want to see us out?
Yeah, sure. This is Curve. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere you can subscribe to a podcast by searching Chapel Bell Curve. If you'd like to get in touch with us or submit an Ask CBC question or send us hate mail, you can hit us on Facebook by searching Chapel Bell Curve, on old school email at Bellcurve. If you'd like us, you can leave us a review, which is very free, 100% in fact.
So free.
Or if you would like to put your money where your proverbial internet mouth is, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Chapel Bell Curve. You can get access to our Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and that will give you access to our excellent Discord, a really fun community of people that has a lot of fun doing dumb stuff. And if that sounds like you, we think that you'll like it. We'll catch you in the Classic City, or I guess we'll catch you in the Classic City or in, I guess, Nashville next week. And until then, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.